Today, Friday, March 24th, 2023 at 1:30 p.m., I, Anit Tyagi, am interviewing Mr. Ricky Paul Lott at the Rocky Mountain Regional VA Medical Center in Aurora, Colorado, as part of the Remembering Our Veterans program. So, Ricky, tell me, where were you born and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Louisiana, but we moved back and forth between Louisiana and Mississippi. In 1980, we moved here to Colorado.
Did you attend high school or any higher education?
Yes, I had attended high school in Thornton, Colorado, and it was at Highland High School.
Mm. So what motivated you to join the military? Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted. It was, something I felt that I wanted to do.
Right. What year was this approximately?
In 1990 or 1984.
And how old were you by that time?
19.
I see, 19. So right after high school.
Right after high school.
In which military branch did you enter? Why did you choose that branch?
Well, it was kind of funny. I left to go to the MEP Center to sign the paperwork. It was supposed to be with the Air Force. So I met the Air Force went down to the recruiting office to meet the Air Force recruiter who was late. Yeah, matter of fact, it was probably almost an hour.
Right.
A Marine recruiter who I hadn't talked to came up the stairs. At the time, it was North Valley Mall at 84th and I-25, which has been gone for years. So when he came up, he went past me and he goes, "Have you talked to me? Who are you waiting for?" And I said, "I'm waiting to go to the MEP Center for the Air Force." And he goes, "Come to my office." And I went and talked with him and told him, I said, "Don't sugarcoat it.
Right.
Tell me what it is, what I can do, what I'm gonna do, and be straight up." He did. So that morning, instead of going down to the Air Force guy, I left with him to go to the MEP Center and signed into the Marine Corps. At the time, my mom, she didn't know it.
I see.
So I went down there, signed the papers, got sworn in, came back home. It was middle of the afternoon, and I told my mom, "Hey, I got my papers, I'm in." She goes, "Oh, that's great. When do you leave for the Air Force?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not going into the Air Force. I'm going into the Marine Corps."
So he sold you on the Marine Corps?
Yes.
How so?
It was basically, I wanted to, I was young. I wanted to go and do everything, jumping out of helicopters and possibly parachuting, doing different things, seeing different countries, being able to still ride on a ship. And plus, what I was good at was communications. So that's where I signed up and I went in, was to do communications.
Great. So transitioning to your wartime service, which wars did you serve in and where exactly did you travel and for how long?
I was in the Gulf War, and also I was in Iraq War. The first time was almost 8 months that I was in the Gulf War, that we were there. But we had been deployed and made the record books at that particular time, being the longest deployed unit since Vietnam. I was with the 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. And we started off and we were doing our 6-month deployment from California into Okinawa, the Philippines, Guam, and then they said, "Oh, yay, you get to go home." And next thing you know, we were about ready to get on the airplane, and they said, "We're not going home.
I see.
You're going straight to Iraq."
Right.
So we went over there, and the way that a lot of us put it, we looked like a bunch of pickles in a bowl of milk because we had green camouflage and we're in the middle of the desert. So we didn't, it took us a while to get uniforms to be able to, be out of the green uniform and into the desert. So, yeah, so that was the one tour. After that, I was in Iraq for a year with the Army is when I went in with the Army, which is a different segue.
So what were your primary job assignments and responsibilities during service?
So in the Marine Corps, I started out as a just a regular communications person. Talked on UHF, VHF, high frequency satellite. Then I also got to go to Morse code school. So before it completely, I mean, ships still use it for signaling, but the actual tones. So I got to go to the Navy school for that, for Morse code. And that was for the Marine Corps. In the Army, I had 10 years break in service. When 9/11 happened, I was out. So when 9/11 happened, I wanted to go back in. And so the Marine Corps, when Desert Storm ended, we weren't, it was no longer a secure place for employment. Usually if you went in the military, you could stay in there forever and, until they, you retired or, they said you have to leave. But after Desert Storm, they said, sorry, the president said, we're doing cutbacks and if you're not, you're at the end of your contract, you can't be promoted due to, overstaffing or whatever in that field. They said, sorry, you're out. So I was out. And that was in 1992, September 21st, a day before my birthday. So that was something that'll stick there for a while.
Right.
So 10 years later, actually it was 9 years, 2 months. I made it like 2 months before the actual cutoff that I couldn't get back into the military. And I went into the Army, and it was, I went into the Army Reserve. First, I went in as in communications, and so it was the same thing in the Marine Corps, but it was just a little different, and just there was a lot of people in that field. So I came up on my first re-enlistment after a year. It was a year. So I changed MOS and went to supply. And so that's when I went into the supply department. So I was started off just, counting stuff and putting it in and giving it out. So it was, that's where I ended up. But in the Marine Corps, I ended up from communications, from just being a regular radio operator. I went to all the way up to communications comm chief. And so I was an E4 holding an E8 billet. So because we didn't have anybody at that time, due to different reasons, they couldn't go with us, or something happened, they had to go back home. So I was the head communications NCO for the enlisted guys, and I had, if I remember correctly, it was 27 people, I think, below me.
Wow.
That I was in charge of in Operation Desert Storm.
So what are some of the extra responsibilities that come with being the communications chief?
Well, it's being able to be able to make those decisions of where to send the people to be able to go with the other different units for communications. So I was in charge of taking these people and deciding where they went. It could be into a different area or a different zone from where we were at, so it was, I didn't know what they were going to end up to. So
Right.
you didn't know if they were coming back or what was going on. It was just hard to be able to send those people out there and then just waiting for them to come back.
So what is the most vivid or fond memory of your service that you'll never forget?
So the most vivid and it was actually on ship.
Mhm.
We, as the Marine detachment on a Navy ship, at least we didn't have to do any jobs or anything. So we got to relax. We got to, stay on the flight deck or on the
Right.
top of the ship or whatever. And that was probably the most relaxed time, because especially when landing in Iraq or going to sleep, the ship kind of rocked you like a crib, would do a baby, and you could just, it was just so peaceful and easy to sleep and everything, as long as you didn't have noisy people in there with you,
Right.
and snoring and everything. But that was probably the best time was we had that was on ship, because we weren't doing our jobs on ship because our job was off ship. So that was probably some of the best time we had was on ship.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events from your service?
So the most humorous was when I was in Iraq the second time in the Army. I didn't work in the field that I was supposed to work in. I went there expecting to do supply, and ended up doing what I did in the civilian world, which was I worked in the infrastructure, building roads and bridges, and the infrastructure, drainage, and water and power. We did that for the city. So when they found that out and they needed to rebuild a Iraqi base, me and an Air Force captain got tasked to be basically contracting officers to go and help make sure all the Iraqi contractors were putting the base back together and putting it. The base was pretty bad, had nothing, it had buildings, but no water, no power. There was no infrastructure to the place. It was, just completely destroyed. The water plant was dry. You could walk out where the water was, and it was all dirt. And so we had to put all that back together. And it took us about 45 days to do everything. But in the time that we did it, we got to build relations with the Iraqi contractors, to where we had to have interpreters to be able to tell them what we wanted them to do and how to do it and make sure it was done right. So by the time that we left, they had they had running water, they had sewer, they had roads, they had power. And the person that we did this for was an Iraqi general whose name was General Jabbar. And the base was in Numaniah. We weren't a part of an American base. We were on a actual Iraqi base. So there was only about 45 of us that were Americans, and the rest of the base, which was like 8,000, were at this base. So once we got that done, we helped train them. And since I knew heavy equipment, then I was training them how to run heavy equipment, whether it was backhoes and graders and dump trucks. So that it kind of led in that direction. But while I was over there, the general, he got to do a lot of things for us, and kind of made sure we got a little better than everybody else because we built his base. So I had to have surgery, and I had went back to Baghdad for this surgery. And when I was coming out of surgery and still in ICU, they came in and, hey, there's a general for calling you, he's wanting to talk to you. And I was like, who? And they said General Jabbar or General Jabi or something. Right. And so next thing you know, I told him, I said, because I was still coming out of it, I told him, I said, tell him I'll call him when I wake up. And they just, we're all flipping that I had told him to tell this general that I'd call him back. But, it was pretty unique that the general from an Iraqi army was calling to see how I was doing.
Right.
Oh, so, and then for us being there, this is what he gave. Well, he gave me a bayonet from AK-47. So I took it and, presented by General Jabbar, Iraqi Army, September 2007, July 2008. And then I put a Numanaya multinational force, Staff Sergeant Ricky Lott. And so it's a pretty neat memento that I'll get to keep and pass on through my family.
Wow. So overall, what would you say was the best part of your service experience?
I can't really say that there was a best part.
Mm-hmm.
There's different phases of it that happen. There's when you first get in and you're scared. You don't know what's next and what's going on. So after it goes on, you learn the routines in the military life, and you start finding your way. And then you build relationships with different people and everything, and
Right.
they become your family. So there's not really a good time or a bad time, even though there are good times and bad times, you just can't pick them out.
Right.
But the whole experience of being in the military, I wouldn't trade it.
So as we now let's discuss a little bit more about your end of service. So were you awarded any medals or citations for your service? If so, which ones and how did you get them?
Well, I got some from the Marine Corps and some from the Army. From the Marine Corps, I got 3 good conduct medals, a Navy Achievement Medal, a Navy Unit Commendation Medal, a Meritorious Unit Commendation Medal, Combat Action Ribbon, Southwest Asia Medal with 2 stars, Kuwait Liberation Medal, Sea Service Deployment, and a National Defense Medal, 5 Rifle Expert Badge, 3 Pistol Expert Badge, and then they weren't medals or ribbons. They were 3 letters of appreciation and a meritorious mass from the Marine Corps. And then from the Army, I got a Purple Heart, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Joint Service Achievement Medal, Army Achievement Medal, a second National Defense Medal, Iraqi Campaign, Armed Forces Reserve Medal, Non-Commissioned Officers Professional Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon. And then also a Kuwait Liberation. Did I say that? Yeah, I did. So I mean, combined, I got quite a few. The accommodation medals and everything. There was unit ones, but then there was personal ones. So the Joint Service Medal or Joint Service Commendation Medal is the closest that you can get to a Silver Star. So between that one and the Purple Heart and the Combat Action is the ones I kind of think are the most important.
I see. What was the most recent award that you were given?
Was the Purple Heart.
I see.
I was just, I worked with the American Legion. We found out that because I was in an IED in Iraq, I was actually in 2 IEDs, that I was a recipient of that. So they put in the paperwork, and it took a long process, but then they came back and said I was awarded a Purple Heart.
Wow. So what occupations did you have after service, and what are you currently doing?
After service, there was quite a few. I had to figure out where my life was outside the military. It was, I went from as simple as a gas station attendant to I was a waiter for a little while. I drove truck for a little while. I worked with the city of Thornton for several years. And then I couldn't find where I needed to be. And so it was kind of hard. So the last job I had was I was delivering fuel here in Denver. And then COVID happened and I got laid off. And so I started volunteering here at the hospital.
Wow.
And I volunteered for almost 7 months, 40 hours a week. I was first one there, last one leaving, and did whatever I could and whenever I could for facilities management and in FMS. And they finally hired me on. So then I worked with them for almost a little over a year. And then I started working in the or detailed in the chapel as their admin assistant for a detail for 120 days. Then they decided to keep me on longer and stayed there. And then February 28th of this year, I came permanently here in the chapel as their admin assistant / admin officer.
Oh, it's quite a journey.
Yeah.
So about what age did you leave the military?
That was in 2013.
I see.
Is when I left.
And how old were you at that time?
I can't tell you right off the top of my head.
That's fine. So more on some reflections of your military service. So how does your military service experiences affect your life?
Well, I guess it would, um, it taught me um, to be persistent, um, to be diligent, to no matter what's needing to be done, to do it the best way I can.
Mm.
It's you take one step at a time and you keep going. You just keep moving, even though you think it's impossible or just like in the military, if we were out on mission and you're just dog tired, you still do what
Mm.
you have to accomplish. And here, I mean, it's not the same, but you have those basic principles that you live by.
Similarly, are there any other life lessons that you've gained from military experience?
I mean, I'm sure there is, but it's like that, what they say, muscle memory.
Right.
You learn from what you've done all these years in the military, and you just apply it
Mm.
to your everyday life. Um, you get up in the mornings, you got to get to work, you make your rack, and then you go do your job. Well, same thing now. You get up every morning. You may or may not like what you're doing. You get up and get ready. You make your bed and go to work.
Right.
And yeah, you do it for however long you need to do it. And so,
What are some things you miss about being in the service? Is there anything you're glad to have left behind?
well, I'll have to say uh, that I miss um, traveling.
Mm.
Just to the different countries and seeing the different cultures, and um, being able to just to learn the cultures and eat different foods.
Mm.
I mean, you can do it here, but to go out to whether it's Thailand, the Philippines, Okinawa, I mean, you learn how to basically live, and you you cherish more of what you have here in America. Even though some of those places, I mean, they live on just the basics that they have and no more. But it was still fun to go there and do that.
Is there anything you're glad to have left behind?
No, there's not really anything that I'm glad I left,
Mm.
because uh, everything I had, I mean, everything I did in the military was great.
So moving on to our conclusion. So what do you wish more people like civilians knew about veterans and military service?
If they know that they're veterans, they need to, give them that respect. There's, a lot of veterans that I see that they're not treated well,
Mm.
or just talked down to, or whatever. It's just like, when you talk to your elders, you show them the respect. Um, Not only me, but all the other veterans, and the ones that didn't make it back home. They gave, their lives, for the way we live.
Mm.
So they should respect that.
What would you like people to know or remember from your journey?
Hmm. Well, I guess is no matter what branch of service you go into, I was, I went into the Marine Corps first and the Army second, but still, um, there's always going, all the branches, they're meant to do different things and how they do it. Um, but, if I had to choose, yeah, I wish I could have stayed in the Marine Corps. But again, I was able to go into the Army
Mm.
and I learned and had, a successful, career in the Army, and I enjoyed what I did. And I'm sure if I would have been able to do the same in the Marine Corps and been in there a lot longer, I would have had the same, with them.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view this interview?
Hmm. Well, I guess for future generations would be, um, don't be scared. If if it's a career path that you want to go on, take it, jump it, jump right into it and do it. Um, the only regret you'll have is not knowing
I
if
see.
you would have been good at it or whatever. It's if that's something you want to look at and do, look into it. And if it's still something you'd like to do, then by all means do it. Other people might be against you or or whatever, but it's your choice.
Is there anything else you would like to add that we have not covered in this interview?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Already. Thank you.